My mother, Patricia, lost more than independence in her 70s. She lost the life she had built. It wasn't sudden. It was the quiet accumulation of inactivity, slow muscle loss, and falls that scared her into moving less. The medical system treated her decline as inevitable, something you just accept when you get older. I promised myself I wouldn't let that be my story. Most people, especially women, experience serious muscle loss and strength decline in their 60s, and almost nobody is prepared for it. The physical decline is one thing. The fear, loss of confidence, and disconnection from your own body are another. Those years between 60 and 70 can turn into the most vulnerable decade of your life. I watched my sister Carol struggle throughout her 60s with joint pain, weight gain, and shame about her body. If you're over 60 and haven't built real strength and resilience, you're running out of time. Not to look a certain way, but to stay in charge of your own life. To play with grandchildren without fear. To feel like your body belongs to you again. I'm a 66-year-old retired school administrator from Asheville, North Carolina, who watched her mother lose independence early and decided at 60 to do things differently. I'm going to walk you through 7 simple, doable things you can start now to build real muscle, strength, and confidence after 60. Not extreme, not overwhelming, just real. How old are you? Leave a comment. I read through comments and love connecting with people in this season of life. What brought you here today? Number 7, start moving in ways that feel sustainable and honest for your body. Here's what I realized when I was about 58 years old. I had spent a decade trying to pretend my body was something it wasn't. I wasn't ready for high-impact exercise. I wasn't confident. I was stiff. But instead of acknowledging that and working with where I actually was, I kept doing nothing because nothing felt good enough. The truth is, you can't skip the foundation and go straight to the building, and that's what so many of us try to do. When I finally committed to change at 60, really committed, I had to start somewhere. My doctor told me something I'll never forget. She said, "Linda, movement is medicine, but only if you actually do it." She didn't say I needed marathons or heavy weights. She said I needed to move in ways I would actually keep doing consistently. For me, that meant starting with walking. Just walking, deliberately, with attention to how my body felt. Twice a week, I started doing simple strength work, wall push-ups, and sit-to-stands. The science is straightforward. After 60, you naturally lose muscle mass. But here's the thing, you can rebuild it. Studies show women over 60 who engage in regular strength work 2 or 3 times a week can reverse muscle loss and build real strength. I started because I was desperate not to become my mother. I continued because something shifted. My body started to feel like mine again. My posture changed. I could carry groceries without thinking about it. I could play with my grandchildren, Sophie and Henry were smaller then, without being afraid I'd hurt myself or them. That one change, that decision to move consistently in ways that felt possible, set everything else in motion. So here's what I want you to do. You don't have to join a gym. You don't have to become an athlete, but you do have to start somewhere, and you have to pick something you'll actually keep doing. It doesn't have to be extreme. You can start where you are. If you're mostly sedentary right now, start with walking 3 times a week. Add some gentle strength work that makes you feel your muscles working. Notice how your body responds, and then, most importantly, keep going. Number 6, understand that strength is something you have to build intentionally, not something you can coast on. What changed for me between 58 and 60 wasn't just that I got older. It was that I realized I was living in a body that no longer felt strong, upright, or fully mine. I finally understood something my mother never did. Strength isn't automatic. Once you hit a certain age, you can't assume it will stay with you. You have to actively choose it over and over again. When I was younger, in my 40s, I could go months without really moving and my body would be fine. That ability disappeared somewhere in my 50s. My sister Carol spent her whole 60s not understanding this. She thought her aching knees and that feeling of heaviness were just part of getting older. She didn't realize that her weakness was creating her pain, not the other way around. She never learned that if she built strength, a lot of that pain would actually ease. My doctor explained it clearly. After age 30, women naturally lose muscle mass, but after 60, that loss accelerates. The less muscle you have, the harder everything becomes. Climbing stairs, getting up from a chair, catching yourself if you fall. It becomes a downward spiral. Strength is something I have to choose deliberately and consistently, not occasionally, but as a real part of how I take care of myself, like brushing my teeth or sleeping well. Research shows women who do resistance work 2 to 3 times a week build measurable strength within weeks. Within months, real changes. But you have to actually do it. For me, that meant resistance bands, body weight exercises, and light dumbbells. Nothing dramatic, but consistent. I had to start with what felt easy because building strength is about progression, not perfection. You've probably spent years, maybe decades, letting your strength decline. You can't fix that with a weekend, but you can't fix it by doing nothing. Even light resistance work is better than nothing, but you have to start, and you have to mean it. Number 5, pay attention to your bones and your balance because a fall changes everything. One of the reasons my mother's decline accelerated so quickly wasn't just inactivity. It was the falls. Couple of falls in her 70s terrified her so much she started moving less, which made her weaker, which made her more likely to fall. It's a vicious cycle that destroyed her independence. For women over 60, the risk of osteoporosis is real. As estrogen declines, bones become less dense and fragile. A fall at 45 might be a scraped knee. At 75, it's a broken hip, which often means losing independence forever. I learned this watching my mother's story, and it terrified me enough to actually change. My doctor did a bone scan and found my bone density was declining too. Here's what nobody told me. The same resistance work that builds muscle also helps build bone density. Strength training isn't just about looking stronger. It's about actually becoming stronger in ways that matter. Balance also changed for me. I didn't realize how much my balance had declined until I started paying attention. Simple things like standing on one leg while brushing my teeth became part of my routine. Your balance is a skill, and like any skill, it deteriorates if you don't practice it. My sister Carol struggled with this. She didn't do work to maintain her balance, and it made her anxious about falling, which made her move more stiffly, which made her more likely to fall. Research is clear. Women who do regular resistance and balance training have significantly fewer falls. Those who do fall often recover better because muscles and bones are stronger. It's not complicated, but it requires intention. Don't wait until a fall forces the issue. Start now. Add balance work to your routine. A fall at 65 can be a learning experience if you're strong. At 75, it can end your independence. Number 4, understand that what you eat genuinely matters, and you can't strength train your way out of bad nutrition. For years, I thought movement was the whole answer. I got the exercise part right, but I was still eating the way I had always eaten, not thinking much about it. I would eat when I was hungry, eat what I liked, and assume that was fine. What I learned, and what my doctor had to tell me directly, was that you can't build real strength if you're not feeding your muscles. Protein became important in a way it had never been before. I was trying to do resistance work and build muscle, but I wasn't eating enough protein to support that building. My doctor explained that after 60, your body needs more protein to maintain muscle, and even more if you're trying to build it. I started paying attention to what I was eating. Not in an obsessive way, not counting every calorie, but deliberately. I made sure I was getting protein with most meals. I noticed how much better I felt, how much more energy I had when I was eating real food, vegetables, whole grains, protein I actually enjoyed. My husband David has watched this transformation. He was supportive, but he'd tease me about suddenly caring about what I was eating. But here's what's interesting. Once he saw the difference it made, once he saw his wife feel strong and confident again, he started paying attention too. The science on this is quite robust. Women over 60 who maintain adequate protein intake, usually around 30 grams per meal, combined with resistance training, see significant muscle growth and strength improvement. It's not some secret. Most of us just weren't paying attention. For me, this meant protein at breakfast. Chicken, fish, or eggs, beans and legumes, nuts and yogurt instead of crackers, nothing extreme, nothing that required me to be someone different, just real attention to what I was eating. You can't strength train your way out of poor nutrition, but you don't have to become obsessive. Notice what you're eating and make intentional choices that support the body you're building. Number 3. Accept that rest and recovery are not optional. They're where the actual building happens. When I was younger, I didn't understand this. I thought strength came from working hard and pushing yourself. But what I learned in my 60s is that the actual building, the adaptation and growth, happens when you rest. This was a huge realization for me, because I was someone who felt I had to work hard to deserve rest. I'd spent 33 years in education administration, managing crises and needs. I was always pushing. When I committed to getting strong, I had that same mentality. If some exercise is good, more exercise must be better. But it's not. My doctor had to tell me this directly. She said that as you get older, your recovery takes longer. Your muscles need more rest to actually build. If you're doing strength work, you need to give yourself at least one rest day between working the same muscle groups. And your overall sleep and stress management become more important, not less. I had to change how I thought about this. I had to give myself permission to rest without feeling lazy. I had to understand that rest is when the adaptation happens. Rest is when your muscles actually grow. Rest is when your body repairs itself and gets stronger. This became even more relevant to me as I thought about my grandchildren. Sophie is 9 now, Henry is 6, and little Lily just turned 4. I want to be the kind of grandmother who can keep up with them, who can play with them, who can be present for them over years and decades, and that requires a sustainable approach. I can't burn myself out by overtraining. I have to build something I can maintain. So my routine became more realistic. I strength train 2 or 3 times a week, not 6 days a week. I walk most days, but I'm not pushing myself to exhaustion. I prioritize sleep, I manage my stress, and I've noticed that I make more progress this way than I did when I was trying to do everything hard all the time. The research is clear. Older adults actually need more sleep and recovery than younger people. Muscle is built in the recovery phase, not during the workout. If you're over 60 and not getting enough sleep, you're sabotaging your efforts. Give yourself permission to rest. Schedule it. Plan it. Understand that recovery is where the actual building happens. Number 2, believe that you're not too old and it's not too late. This is the message I wish someone had given me when I was 58 and watching my mother decline. I was living in a body that no longer felt like mine, and I believed, really believed, that this was just what happened when you got older. You became less. What I learned is that so much of that decline isn't inevitable. So much of it is a choice made by default, by not actively choosing something different. When I was 60 years old, I was tired. I was softer. I was stiffer. I was less confident. I started telling myself this was just age and there was nothing I could do about it. But that story wasn't true. I committed to change at 60. Within 6 months, real differences. Within a year, I felt like a different person. Not trying to be 30 again, but like I had reclaimed something I thought lost forever, the experience of being strong in my own body. My doctor told me something that changed how I thought about this. She said, "Linda, I have patients in their 80s and 90s who are stronger than my patients in their 60s. The difference isn't age. The difference is choice. The difference is whether they decided their strength matters." That landed hard. Here's the thing. The women who are struggling most in their 70s and 80s are often the women who decided in their 50s and 60s they were too old to change. They believed that story and lived it. But the women who stayed strong and independent, they're the ones who decided their strength mattered, and they did the work. You have more agency than you probably think. You can build real strength at 60, rebuild it at 70. It takes attention, consistency, and honesty about where you are, but it's possible. My sister Carol, watching what I did, eventually decided she wanted something different. She started moving, paying attention to nutrition, investing in strength. At 70 now, she feels better than she did in her 60s. You're not too old. It's not too late. But the time to start is now. Not next month. Not when your schedule opens. Now. There's only one direction you go if you don't actively choose to go the other direction. Number 1, understand that what changes you is consistency, not intensity. This is the one thing that would have saved me so much time if I'd understood it earlier. I spent years thinking that change had to be dramatic. I had to completely transform my life. I had to become a different person. So I did nothing because becoming a different person felt impossible. What I learned is that real change doesn't work that way. Real change, the kind that actually sticks and becomes part of how you live, comes from consistency. Little by little, small habits, regular choices, nothing extreme. When I turned 60 and committed to this, I didn't overhaul everything. I didn't join a gym. I didn't hire a trainer. I didn't go on an extreme diet. I started moving 3 times a week. I started paying attention to what I ate. I started prioritizing sleep. These are small things. They're not dramatic, but they're consistent. And it's that consistency that changed me. I see so many people, especially women my age, try to do everything at once. They try to transform overnight, And when they can't, when they realize they're human and they can't sustain that level of intensity, they give up. They go back to old patterns. They decide change is impossible. But it's not impossible. It's just not about intensity. It's about showing up repeatedly. It's about doing what you committed, even when it's not exciting anymore. It's about choosing the small thing day after day and letting that accumulate into something real. When my grandchildren were younger, I would have fallen trying to play with them. I was afraid. My body didn't feel capable. Now I can be fully present with them, not because I became superhuman, but because I consistently, over a period of time, built real strength and confidence. That's what's available to you too. Not some extreme transformation, but a real, sustainable change from small, consistent choices. I wish I'd understood this earlier. Consistency beats intensity every single time. The small thing you do today, multiplied by 1,000 days, becomes a real life. My mother, Patricia, didn't understand this. She waited for motivation that never came. By 75, her window was mostly closed. You can start where you are, but you do have to start, and you do have to mean it. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Think about one small thing, just one, that you're going to do consistently for the next month. Maybe it's walking 3 times a week. Maybe it's adding protein to breakfast. Maybe it's doing simple strength work twice a week. Maybe it's prioritizing sleep. Pick that one thing. Commit to it. Notice what happens when you're consistent, even when it's not extreme. Come back and tell me about it. I read the comments. I really do. I care about how you're doing. Where are you starting? What's your one thing? What brought you to watch this video? Tell me in the comments below. And if this resonates with you, if you know someone in your life who needs to hear that it's not too late, that change is possible, that strength matters, please share this with them. That's how I reach people. That's how the message gets to the women who most need to hear it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for considering that maybe, just maybe, your strength is worth investing in. And I'll be back with more because this conversation matters to me. Take care of yourself. You're worth it.